You have 3,100 and a truck that needs a transmission. That's the whole starting position. Not a metaphor. Not the kind of broke a guy describes on a podcast where it turns out his father's construction company was just between contracts that year. $3,100 in a checking account, a 2009 Silverado making a noise you have decided not to investigate, and a job doing material takeoffs for a drywall sub that pays you $54,000 a year before the state and the federal government take their turn. Your name is Cass Whitlow. You are 26 years old. 2 weeks ago, you watched a man named Trent Bosch stand in a parking garage in Scottsdale in front of a rented Lamborghini Urus and explain to 400,000 strangers that real estate is the last legal way for a normal person to get rich in America. He said the word doors 11 times in 90 seconds. He said he controls 12 of them. You will find out, much later, that he owns 2 and that one of them is his mother's condo in Mesa. You did not buy his course. You also did not close the app. Because underneath the rented car and the drone shot and the caption about sacrifice, the thing he was saying happens to be true. Real estate is how an enormous number of profoundly ordinary people have become permanently, generationally wealthy. And unlike almost every other route, this one isn't a secret. The mechanics are public. They're written into the tax code and the loan programs and the appraisal standards. Anyone can read them. Almost nobody does. What Trent doesn't tell you, what nobody tells you, because it's the least sellable fact in the entire industry, is that this isn't one path. It's 7 levels stacked on top of each other, and each level is a completely different game with different math, different risks, and a different version of you required to play it. The instincts that carry you from level 1 to level 2 will actively sabotage you at level 4. The number climbs in a straight line. Almost nothing else does. So, 0 to a billion, level by level. What each rung actually costs, and the specific reason most people fall off it. Start at the bottom, start where you are. Level 1, the door. Level 1 is not an investment. Level 1 is a loophole in where you sleep, and it is available to almost everyone watching this, which is exactly why almost nobody uses it. The Federal Housing Administration will insure a loan on a property with up to 4 units at 3.5% down, the same 3.5% it charges for a single-family house, as long as you live in one of the units yourself for at least 12 months. In 2026, the standard limit on a duplex is $671,200 and considerably higher in expensive metros. That's the entire mechanism. The government does not care that 3 of your 4 units are a business. It only cares that one of them is your bed, so you spend 14 months not going out. You save $9,400 doing takeoffs and weekend demo work. Your grandmother gives you $4,000 and signs a gift letter because FHA allows gifted funds if the paper trail is clean. And in a town nobody makes videos about, 90 minutes from the metro where Trent films, you buy a $340,000 duplex from an estate sale. 3.5% is $11,900. The upfront mortgage insurance premium, 1.75%, gets rolled into the loan. The annual premium, 0.55%, is baked into the payment forever, or at least until you refinance out of it. Here is the part that matters. The lender will count 75% of the projected rent from the other unit toward your qualifying income, not your optimistic guess, but the number an appraiser writes on a market rent schedule. That credit is the reason you qualify at all. On paper, you don't earn enough for a $340,000 building. With the rent, you do. Your all-in payment is about $2,683. The other side rents for $1,475. You pay $1,208 a month to live in a place where a 1-bedroom would have cost you $1,450. That's it. That's level 1. You are not rich. You are $240 a month less poor, and you now spend your Saturdays learning what a wax ring is because your tenant's toilet is doing something creative at 11 at night while Trent posts a story from a rooftop in Tulum. Run the year. You saved about $2,900. A stranger paid down roughly $4,300 of your principal. Call it $7,000 of net worth for 12 months of being on call. It's insulting. Measured against the effort, it's genuinely insulting. And it's the single most important rung on the ladder because the asset you actually acquired this year wasn't the duplex. It was proof, a 12-month payment history on an owner-occupied multi-unit, a rent roll, a Schedule E, and a relationship with a loan officer who now knows your name. You didn't buy a building. You bought the ability to be lent money again. Most people fall off here, not because it's hard, because it's boring, and the return per unit of humiliation is terrible, and no one is filming. You meet Hollis Grieve in the plumbing aisle. He's 56, wearing a windbreaker with a lumberyard logo on it, buying a 14 tape measure because his last one went into a dumpster with a bag of drywall scrap. He owns 400 units. Level 2. The Loop. Hollis buys you coffee in a gas station and tells you the thing that reorganizes your entire understanding of this business, and he says it like it's obvious because to him it is. You are not in the property business. you are in the down payment business. Think about what actually limits you. It isn't deals. There are always deals. It's that every purchase eats a pile of cash you then spend 3 years rebuilding. Buy a house, your money is gone. Buy another, gone again. At $54,000 a year, you get one shot every 4 years, which means you'll own 5 properties around the time you turn 50. Unless the money comes back. Buy, rehab, rent, refinance. Repeat. The whole strategy is one loop, and the loop's only purpose is to return your capital to you so the same dollars can go do it again. On paper, it's beautiful. You find a $185,000 house with a caved-in kitchen and a roof at the end of its life. You put $42,000 into it with a hard money loan at 11%. Fixed up, comparable houses on that street sell for $310,000. So you refinance into a conventional loan at 75% of that value, $232,500, which pays off the purchase, pays off the rehab, and hands your cash back to you. You now own a house that cash flows $310 a month, and your down payment is sitting in your account again, ready. Same $40,000, 4 properties. That's the promise, and it is real. Here's what actually happens on your second one. Your contractor takes the 60% draw and stops answering the phone in week 3. You lose 5 weeks finding another one who wants $8,000 more than the first quote because he's inheriting somebody else's framing. The appraisal comes back at $278,000 instead of $310,000 because the comp you were counting on closed with a seller concession you didn't know about. 75% of $278,000 is $208,500, which is not enough to make you whole, so you leave $18,000 of your own money trapped in the deal. 3 months becomes 7, and for all 7 of them you are paying 11% interest on money you borrowed against a house nobody lives in. You do it 4 more times anyway. You get better. You learn to underwrite the appraisal instead of the dream, to hold back 30% until the punch list is signed off, to add a 15% contingency, and then actually spend it. By 31, you have 6 stores and a net worth around $310,000, and you are exhausted in a way that doesn't respond to sleep. You tell Hollis you're finally an investor. He says you don't have a portfolio. You've got 4 part-time jobs that pay you in equity. He isn't being cruel. He's telling you the failure mode. Level 2 is not passive, and it is not a business. It's a trade you perform with a mortgage attached, and if you stay here, you will do it until your knees give out. Plenty of people do. They're not poor. They're just still working. The next level is where that stops being true, and it turns on a single line of arithmetic. Level 3, the multiplier. A house with 4 units is worth whatever the house down the street sold for. A house with 5 units is worth whatever it earns. Read that again, because it is the most consequential sentence in American real estate, and it takes 10 seconds to say. 1 to 4 units are residential. An appraiser values them by comparison. What did similar buildings trade for nearby? You have no influence over that. You can renovate a kitchen and hope, but the market decides, and the market is not listening to you. 5 units and up are commercial, and commercial property is valued by a formula: net operating income divided by the capitalization rate. Annual income after expenses, before the mortgage, divided by the yield the market demands for that kind of asset in that kind of place. Which means value stops being something you discover. It becomes something you manufacture. At 32, you buy a 24-unit Class C building for $2,400,000. It's tired, beige, flat-roofed, built in 1974 with a parking lot that sheds gravel. Its net operating income is $132,000 a year. Divide, and you get a cap rate right around 5.5%, which in this market is roughly where these trade. National multifamily cap rates averaged about 5.6% across all classes in the first quarter of 2026, with Class C, the old unglamorous stuff, closer to 5.38. They've hovered near 5.7 for 7 straight quarters now, the longest flat stretch in 25 years. Rents in that building are $75 a month under market because the previous owner was 81 and hadn't raised them since his wife died. You raise them at renewal. 24 units, $75, 12 months, $21,600 a year. Then you spend $9,000 on low-flow toilets and aerators because the building is on a master water meter and you are personally financing every long shower in it. That saves about $6,000 a year. New net operating income, $159,600, divide by the same 5.5% cap rate. The building is now worth $2,901,000. You created $500,000 with $9,000 of plumbing fixtures and a letter. That is the whole level. In level 1, your net worth grew because a tenant paid down $4,300 of principal. In level 3, it grows by $500,000 because you changed a number on a spreadsheet, and the number happened to be true. You also hire a property manager at 8% of collections. It costs you about $23,000 a year, and it is the best money you have ever spent because for the first time since you were 26, the input isn't your Saturday. The building doesn't know whether you're paying attention. Now the failure mode, and it is severe. The formula runs backwards. If cap rates move from 5.5 to 6.5, which is not a crash, that's an ordinary interest rate cycle, your $2 million 901,000 building is suddenly worth $2 million 455,000. Nothing happened to it. Same tenants, same roof, same rent. $446,000 evaporated because someone in Washington adjusted a rate. Now do that on a building where you put 25% down? Cap rate expansion has ended more real estate careers than bad tenants ever will. By 35, you're at about $1.4 million, and you notice you haven't held a tape measure in 2 years. Level 4. Other people's money? You run out of capital long before you run out of deals. That's the wall, and every level up to now has been built on the same soft assumption that the money is yours. Your savings, your refinance proceeds, your equity. Which means the ceiling on your ambition is a number in your own account. Level 4 removes the ceiling by removing your money from the equation. You syndicate. Investors, limited partners, bring the equity. You're the general partner. You find the deal, sign the loan, execute the plan, and take a slice of the outcome that is dramatically larger than the slice of the money you put in. The structure is standardized enough to recite. Investors get a preferred return first, usually 6 to 8%, before you see $1 of profit. Above that, profits split in tiers, commonly 90-10 in the investor's favor below a 10% internal rate of return, 80-20 between 10 and 15, 70-30 above that. That escalating slice is called the promote, and it is the reason you take the personal guarantee. Then there are the fees, an acquisition fee of 1 to 2% of the purchase price. Asset management running $50,000 to $200,000 a year. Construction management at 5 to 10% of the value-add budget. A disposition fee of 1 to 2% when it sells. At 36, you close an $18 million property with $6 million 200,000 raised from 41 investors. Your acquisition fee is 1.5%. $270,000, wired to you at closing, before a single tenant has noticed the building changed hands. That is the moment your income detaches from your ownership. Everything before this, every dollar you made from 26 to 35 came from owning things. From here forward, most of it comes from managing things. You are now, functionally, a fee business wearing a real estate costume. And if you're honest with yourself about that, you'll make better decisions than if you aren't. It also isn't a scam, whatever the comment section says. You signed a recourse carve-out. Your name is on $12 million of debt. If the boiler and the market fail in the same quarter, the investors lose money and you lose money and also your house. The promote is what that risk is priced at. But something else arrives with the wire, and nobody warns you about it. The $6 million 200,000 is not abstract. It's a retired anesthesiologist in Ohio. A widow who sold a duplex her husband bought in 1994. A guy who spent 30 years running a landscaping company and put in $150,000 because his brother-in-law vouched for you. You mentioned this to Hollis over a bad lunch. He's 65 now, still 400 units, still that truck. He never went past level 3, and you've been quietly assuming it was a failure of nerve? He says the day the money stops being yours, the risk stops being yours too. That's the trade. Most guys think that's the good part. Here's the failure mode, and it's fresh enough that people are still living in it. Between 2021 and 2023, thousands of operators bought at compressed cap rates using floating rate bridge debt with 2-year rate caps. Rates moved. The caps expired and cost 8 times as much to renew. Nobody's projected rents materialized. Capital calls went out, deals went back to the lender, and a lot of people who called themselves general partners in 2022 were, by 2024, defendants. That is where the Trent Bushes actually die, not from being fake. From being real at exactly the wrong moment. 39. About $4 million of your own. 60 million under management. Level 5, the layer nobody films. There is no drone shot for this one. It happens in a conference room with a man named Devrin who charges $2,800 and up to walk through your building with a clipboard, and it is worth more than every renovation you have ever done combined. It's called a cost segregation study. Ordinarily, a residential building depreciates over 27.5 years, a slow, boring deduction. But a building isn't one thing. It's carpet and cabinets and appliances and parking lot striping and landscaping and the wiring dedicated to a specific appliance. Those components have their own useful lives, 5, 7, 15 years, and a cost segregation study goes through the property and reclassifies them. On residential property, these studies typically pull 25 to 35% of the basis into the accelerated buckets. On commercial, 30 to 45, and then bonus depreciation takes those accelerated components and lets you deduct them all at once. For a few years, that provision was scheduled to die, phasing down to 20% in 2026 and to nothing in 2027. Congress permanently reinstated it at 100% for property acquired after January 19, 2025. So run it on your $18 million building. Strip out the land, which never depreciates, and you've got roughly $14 million, $400,000 of depreciable basis. Dividend study accelerates 28% of it. $4 million of deduction. In year one, the deal produced $840,000 of actual cash. On your tax return, it lost $3.2 million. Now the catch, and it's the reason most people who hear about cost segregation never benefit from it. Those losses are passive by default, which means they can only offset passive income, not your salary, not your fee income. Unless you qualify for real estate professional status, at least 750 hours in real property trades or businesses, and more than half of all the time you spend working. At level 2, when you were swinging a hammer, you couldn't afford the study. At level 5, you can afford it and you actually qualify because real estate genuinely is your job now. Then you never sell. When you exit a building, you 1031 exchange into a bigger one and the gain rolls forward untaxed. Do that for 30 years. Borrow against the portfolio when you need cash because loan proceeds aren't income. Then die and your heirs receive a stepped-up basis and the entire deferred bill vanishes. Buy, borrow, die. It is not a conspiracy theory. It's 3 separate provisions of the tax code doing exactly what they were written to do. The honest caveats, since nobody offers them, depreciation is recaptured when you sell and accelerated depreciation gets recaptured at ordinary rates up to 37%. In a 1031, only excess basis qualifies for bonus depreciation, carryover basis doesn't. None of this is forgiveness. It's deferral, and deferral only works as long as you keep moving. It's a treadmill, admittedly one with a spectacular view. But this is the level where the number finally goes vertical, and here's why. Nobody reaches $1 billion on rent. Rent is not the engine. Rent is the thing that makes the tax position legal, and the tax position is what lets you keep compounding money that would otherwise have gone to the Treasury 11 years ago. 42. About $18 million, $240 million under management. Level 6. The billion. At this level, you stop buying buildings. That sounds like a riddle. It isn't. It's a logistics problem. If you're deploying $400 million and your team can responsibly close maybe 5 transactions a year, the smallest deal you can afford to look at is $80 million. A 24-unit building 90 minutes from anywhere, the exact asset that made you, is now a rounding error you are structurally forbidden from touching. It would consume the same legal review, the same diligence, the same weeks of your team's life, to move a number that doesn't register. Your own success has priced you out of the market you came from. So you buy portfolios. You buy operating companies with property management platforms already attached. You buy other people's funds when they're forced sellers. You want to see the ceiling of this ladder? Look at Blackstone. As of the end of 2025, its real estate arm managed $319 billion of investor capital, representing something like $618 billion of debt and equity inside a firm running close to $1.3 trillion overall. It is the largest owner of commercial real estate on Earth and the largest apartment owner in the United States, holding more than 230,000 units. That's over 10% of every apartment owned by private equity in America, out of roughly 2.2 million. It bought 12,000 Sunbelt apartments in a single $5.8 billion transaction and took Air Communities private for about $10 billion. That's the top floor. That's what the stairs go up to. Now the part that reframes everything you've watched for the last few minutes. You cross $1 billion at 46, and you do not have $1 billion. You have $1 billion under management. Your own co-investment across those funds is somewhere between 3 and 5% of the equity. The billion is a description of what you are responsible for, not what you own. When the press writes about a real estate billionaire, most of the time it is describing exactly this: a person with signing authority over other people's capital. Your personal net worth is around $38 million, which is an extraordinary amount of money and also less than 4% of the headline. And your job is no longer real estate. Your job is institutional capital raising. You fly to Toronto to sit with a pension consultant who will decide whether a teacher's fund allocates to your next vehicle. You spend Tuesdays on quarterly reporting. Your actual product is not a building, it's a track record, packaged, footnoted, and defensible under scrutiny. You have not underwritten a deal yourself in 4 years. And interest rates? At level 3, rates were a thing you had an opinion about. At level 6, they're weather. You don't forecast them. You build things that survive them, and you accept that a decision made in a marble room in Washington can erase or create $200 million of your investor's equity in an afternoon, and that your entire skill is being positioned to not die when it does. Level 7, you see Trent Bosch one more time, not on a screen. You are driving back from a site visit and you stop at a self-storage facility off the interstate to look at a parcel behind it, and the man who comes out of the office with a clipboard and a lanyard is him. Heavier, calmer, genuinely pleasant, he manages the place. He mentions, without any particular pain, that he had a good run online for about 3 years. Neither of you says the word Lamborghini, and Hollis is 75 now. 400 units, same 400 units, the same lumberyard windbreaker. He has no investors, no capital calls, no preferred return accruing against him in a quarter when occupancy dips, no consultant in Toronto. He's worth somewhere around $40 million and he owns every single dollar of it, and if he wanted to sell everything tomorrow, he would need to ask exactly one person for permission. You have $1 billion under management and $38 million to your name, and 211 people's retirements are sitting inside your judgment. So run the arithmetic of the whole thing one more time. At every level the number got bigger, and at every level the fraction of it that was actually yours got smaller. Level 1, you owned all of a very small thing. Level 6, you own a sliver of an enormous one. That's not a warning, and it isn't a tragedy, it's just the trade, stated plainly, which is the one thing the parking garage version never does. There is no level 7, or rather, level 7 is knowing which level was yours and having the nerve to stop there while everyone else keeps climbing. Hollis found his on the 3rd rung and never moved again. That wasn't a failure of ambition. That was the only part of the whole thing he ever actually got to own.